Hi, I'm Christine Cushing, and welcome to the Quarantine Kitchen, where we make simple, feel-good recipes that connect and nourish us all. Today is a request, and I'm going to take you to the eastern part of France in a beautiful wine region called Burgundy. Do you know what we're going to make? Bingo! Boeuf Bourguignon. Allons-y. So I took the liberty of getting ready or getting going the bacon air freshener. It's already on, sizzling. The room is smelling of bacon. And that's going to be my first step in the Boeuf Bourguignon. I just want to brown that lightly over a moderate heat. And I'm going to pretty much add my mushrooms to that. And I've just quartered these cremini mushrooms, really any kind of mushrooms. This is really known more as the garnish. And I got a little mushroom plate. How cute is that? And I'm just going to let those all get to know one another. And since we're in France, why not hit it with just a teeny bit of butter while they're in there. Already smelling like Eastern France. Ooh la la. All right, so while that starts to brown, this is actually going to just take a couple of turns in there while it gets golden, and then I'm going to remove it. Then we start on the beef. So let me just read you something that I thought would be super interesting about this recipe. I happen to have the original master chef of France. I mean, he is the standard Auguste Escoffier. Every chef knows about him. So I wanted you to hear the first line of what he says in the Boeuf Bourguignon. So here's line 1. Lard the rump of beef and marinate for 3 hours. So already, we are not actually making the Boeuf Bourguignon according to Escoffier from those days. So I always want to have fun with this because there's so many comments going around online about what's the original recipe of anything, how is it supposed to be, how is it not supposed to be. And this is such a great moment to just talk about recipes evolve over time and techniques are different. I mean, if you look at that recipe, it has crazy things that you would never do today. So for this, it's a simplification, it's a bit of a modernization of this rustic, incredible dish from that eastern part of France. So I hear a little sizzling happening, which is great. I'm going to just crank up the heat a bit. So this part is going to be removed. I just want to give them a bit of color, and I'm trying to optimize my pots here. So I'm not making it, you know, à la française, which is like 100 pots. I'm going to try and keep everything to this pot where I can. And by the way, this is all going to be cooked in the oven. So let's talk a little bit about the beef. I want to draw your attention to that. I've got chuck. This is shoulder. Really, for me, the best choice for a Boeuf Bourguignon. It's going to become super tender. It's got a lot of connective tissue. And step number 1 is always to make sure it's super dry. So I pat it thoroughly with a paper towel. And always take it out of any kind of bag or paper that it's in. Oh, look at this. Already sweet. The great thing about mushrooms can add so much flavor to a dish, but this browning really kind of amplifies it, gives them texture, and it really brings out the flavor. If I just throw them into a simmering stew, they're not going to have the same texture or flavor. You see? 2 minutes on this. Okay, so a couple of minutes in, I'm just going to now remove both the bacon and these beautiful little mushrooms delicately. Because French cooking, even in its rustic sense, is about certain techniques. And I want to make sure that I still maintain those techniques. Okay? And I think throughout the course of this recipe, I'm going to give you my kind of deal breaker. Because there's a difference between simplifying and just totally messing it up, right? So let me show you in here. Okay, that is just going to sit aside, and this is going to be added at the last probably hour or half hour of cooking. Set it aside there. Here, I need a little bit more fat because that bacon actually didn't render a lot. So you have a couple of choices here. I can go in with a little bit of butter, and I'm going to hit it also with a combo, so of butter and olive oil, just to brown that meat. And then just seasoning with a little bit of kosher salt. And when I know that my pan is nice and hot, then I'm going to start browning the meat. So here, these are the techniques in the French kitchen that really can take you from, you know, a 6 to an 8 already, just in the technique. So there's about 3 pounds, 1.7 kilo here. I can't put all this meat in because if I try to brown this all at the same time, I'm going to start steaming the meat. So you see how I leave some space? To me, that's ideal. I'm going to do it in 2 batches. And what we're after is Maillard reaction. Super, super brown before we get to the next phase. Right now, I'm at a high heat, but not smoking high. And a lot of times when you watch chefs cook, especially on TV, because we're used to being in restaurants, everything is cranked. At home, I try to moderate that because if I crank everything up, I'm just going to basically smoke out the kitchen. So you're trying to get and establish that right heat, but you don't want to just be, you know, in the smoke. So this is good. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of pepper as well, seasoning in layers. And this process here should take roughly, could take 8 to 10 minutes. With both batches. I want to show you what they look like before I go to my next phase. Now, do you see what I'm talking about with the golden brown? We want it to be dark, crimson. That Maillard is what's developing that flavor. So this part here, deal breaker. You got to do this, otherwise you're not going to get that flavor. Now, because I divided it in half, I'm going to put back the other stuff, the other half of the beef, and then we continue. Oh, flavor already. That is good. Look at that. Now that the beef is all beautifully brown, I'm going to start adding some onions. So these are actually shallots that I cut into probably quarters. Woo! I dropped it. Traditionally, stuff happens. Traditionally, you would use pearl onions, but I find them fussy and actually I couldn't even find them in the grocery store. So that's why I keep the shallots a little bit more whole, and they're going to cook down and caramelize, and it's going to be really great, and it's going to add a lot of flavor to this whole thing as it braises. Okay, I'm just going to toss that a couple of times. Then to that, I'm going to also add a couple of carrots. They're sort of large slices so that they don't disintegrate as it braises. Oh, can you start to imagine what's happening in there? Now, I also cook, as you know, with all my senses, so I'm smelling that that is absolutely beautiful. The next phase, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to create a little bit of texture. So just after it's nicely browned, I'm going to put in maybe a couple of tablespoons, like 30 grams or so of flour. Not too much, but just enough to coat it and give our sauce just that little bit of viscosity. And I want to cook that out a bit. Okay, wipe my hands here. Now I have to tell you, for me, the Boeuf Bourguignon, the first time I made it, I was actually in culinary school, and part of our year in culinary school in Paris was we would spend a month at the chateau, which happened to be in Burgundy. And so it totally takes me back there. It reminds me of the cool nights, the kind of air that you can smell. People would be burning wood. You could smell that wood in the forest. And I always connect that smell with Boeuf Bourguignon and that place. And I don't even tell you how amazing it was. So I'm trying to take you to that place and recreate that beautiful Boeuf Bourguignon. And to do that, let's do a little brandy, shall we? This is not a deal breaker, but we're going in. Little deglazing with brandy, splashing. Oh, already phenomenal. Now this Boeuf Bourguignon is not loaded with tomato. I'm just adding a little tomato paste just again to give it a little bit of that tomato and thickness, because in the original, if we go back to Auguste Escoffier, he had a little bit of Espagnole sauce, which is one of the mother sauces. It's totally old school, and I don't know anybody who makes Espagnole, but it does have a little bit of tomato in it. Okay, so just a bit to give it some color, texture, etc. Oh man, look at that. Hello. And now, you know where we're going, right? This is Boeuf Bourguignon, so here's an alert. This is a deal breaker. I'm going in with a beautiful bottle of Pinot from Burgundy, and yes, it's the whole bottle going in, and it's gonna pick up all those crispy bits in the bottom of that pan. And maybe I'll just save a drop for the chef. Why not? Okay, I'm gonna put most of it in. This is really just supposed to be a drop. The idea here is, I have this conversation, I'm not gonna say argument, but conversation with people all the time. To make Boeuf Bourguignon, you must have either Gamay or Pinot Noir. You want a medium body. You don't want a super, super intense tannic wine because it's going to overpower the beef because there's a whole bottle in there. But it also should be a wine that you love to drink. It should have a pleasant, amazing flavor. You're not going to, drop $50 on a bottle of wine, but you're also not going to get that box wine out and put it in there because it's not going to be good. Auguste is going to slap you. Let me taste it. Oh, that's good. That is absolute perfection. Okay, so now I'm there, right? I'm just about where I want to be. Next thing in terms of liquid is going to be a little bit of beef broth. Just enough to cover. I don't want to, again, have this swimming, but I do want it to be just covered, a little bit of the tips kind of poking out. And some seasoning or aromatics. Traditionally, we would do a bouquet garni. Here, it's not a deal breaker. Bouquet garni is just a leek with, some aromatics. I'm just gonna throw in a couple of bay leaves, like this. And I've already chopped some thyme instead of doing the bouquet garni. We don't have to worry about anything pulling it out, etc. I'm gonna go in with a little bit more cracked black. And let me just make sure I added everything because I'm notorious for not adding everything. I'm going to give that a last stir. And now I have my oven set, 300 degrees. I like to put a lid on this and cook it probably let's say two, could even be up to 3 hours. So put a lid on, going in. Oh, Boeuf Bourguignon. Ooh la la. We'll see how long it takes. I'm gonna let you know after a couple hours what it's like. Then we're gonna put the mushrooms and the bacon in. Time for a little more wine. I don't have enough left, but it's okay. All right, 2 hours in. It's been simmering, bubbling away. Somewhere in and around 3 to 325. And now, at the very end, I'm gonna add the beautiful mushrooms and the bacon. So I want to do this towards the end so they keep some of their shape, and now I'm going to continue simmering it uncovered so it thickens a little bit more slightly for about 30 to 45 minutes until it's super tender and the sauce is nice and glistening. The last 40 minutes or so. Oh, yes. Right? That is what I'm talking about. Look at that. Everything is caramelized, beautiful texture on the sauce. I'm just gonna sprinkle with a little bit of parsley just to brighten it up. I always love doing that at the end. Now, again, this might be controversy, but I'm serving this with a beautiful mashed potatoes. These are the Joël Robuchon inspired pomme puree, which I have a video on my channel. You have to check that out. They're amazing. So now, look at that. They're gonna be just getting ready to sit on top of these beautiful mashed. Oh, yes. That's really what I'm talking about. Do a little bit more juice on top. So you see how that sauce just has a little sheen? It's not thick and stodgy. Who's ready to taste? There's a whole bottle of wine in that, but all the alcohol's out. Not to worry, you're just getting all the flavor. This is like the best thing ever. So I want to show you how this beautiful beef after that slow braising is. You see that? All that connective tissue. Beautiful, tender, amazing. And that great sauce. I can't stand it anymore. I gotta go in. I'm going in. Burgundy, here I come. Angels are singing above my head right now. That is so incredible. The concentration of flavors from the red wine, so beefy, so really, really delicious and in-depth all of these flavors are. Oh, that is good. You got to make the mashed potatoes with it for sure. Thank you for joining me in the quarantine kitchen again for this beautiful trip to Burgundy, the east side of France. Please let me know what's happening in your kitchen, how things are going. I love all these requests, challenges. I'm here for you. Let me know what's happening. Thumbs up, share. Let's keep hanging out in the kitchen. See you later.